Hello and welcome to the Bible Difficulties and Answers podcast. I'm your host, Lance Smith. Today we're exploring a captivating topic in biblical research, the identity of the sons of God mentioned in Genesis 6:2. This verse has puzzled biblical scholars for centuries and continues to intrigue us today. Were the sons of God fallen angels, commonly interpreted as demons now dwelling on earth? Or were they humans from the line of Seth? And is this verse crucial for shaping one's own theology? Let's delve into these questions and unpack the different perspectives. As usual, I'll present a number of different opinions from my research and conclude with my own thoughts. Show notes will include links to all we discuss. Are you ready to dive in? All right, let's learn together. Genesis 6:2, and again from the New Living Translation, the sons of God saw the beautiful women and took any they wanted as their wives. Now, the problem with this verse, as defined by the Big Book of Bible Difficulties, is as follows. The phrase sons of God is used exclusively in the Old Testament to refer to angels, Job 1:6, 2:1, and 38:7. However, the New Testament informs us that angels neither marry nor are given in marriage, as we see in Matthew 22:30. Furthermore, if angels married, their children would be half human and half angel. But angels cannot be redeemed, as we find in three separate New Testament verses, close quote. All right, it's important to emphasize that the sons of God mentioned in Genesis 6:2 are real entities. We shouldn't dismiss them as mere literary devices or metaphors. Acknowledging their reality prompts us to seek explanations for their identity and role in biblical narratives. While there are diverse interpretations from reputable scholars and philosophers, it's crucial to remain open to varying perspectives without letting uncertainty overshadow what we do understand about the Bible. Now, that being said, let's start to dive into some solid research and find potential solutions to this Bible difficulty. We'll begin again back with the Big Book of Bible Difficulties for their solution. There are several possible interpretations other than insisting that angels cohabitation with humans. Some Bible scholars believe the sons of God refers to the godly line of Seth, for whom the Redeemer was to come, as we see in Genesis 4:26, who intermingled with the godless line of Cain. They point out that A, this fits the immediate context, B, it avoids the problem with the angel's view, and C, it accords with the fact that humans are also referred to in the Old Testament as God's sons, as we see in Isaiah 43:6. Other scholars believe that sons of God refers to great men of old, men of renown, and they point to the fact that the text refers to giants and mighty men in Genesis 6:4. This also avoids the problems of angels or spirits cohabiting with humans. Still others combine these views and speculate that the sons of God were angels who did not keep their proper domain, as we see in Jude 6. And possessed real human beings, moving them to interbreed with the daughters of men, thus producing a superior breed whose offspring were the giants and men of renown. This view seems to explain all the data without the insuperable problems of angels who are bodiless and sexless spirits cohabiting with humans, close quote. All right, several scholars present compelling arguments suggesting that the sons of God referenced in Genesis were indeed angels. Their perspectives offer intriguing insights into this topic and sparking thoughtful debate and discussion within the academic and theological communities. Let's begin with the MacArthur Study Bible, where it says, but the passage puts strong emphasis on the angelic versus human contrast. The New Testament places this account in sequence with other Genesis events and identifies it as involving fallen angels who indwelt men. Matthew 22:30 does not necessarily negate the possibility that angels are capable of procreation, but just that they do not marry. To procreate physically, they had to possess human male bodies, close quote. All right, this continues with Christian apologist Matt Slick from his November 9th, 2018 article, Who Are the Sons of God in the Bible? Where he writes, and I quote, the term sons of God occurs 10 times in the New American Standard Bible. In the context of each occurrence, it means sons of God are either angelic beings or people. It first occurs in Genesis 6:2, when it refers to the sons of God who took the daughters of men for wives. Their offspring were the Nephilim. So, in this context, who were they? Generally speaking, the Jews and the Christian church all held to the belief that the sons of God were fallen angels who impregnated women. Their offspring, again, were the Nephilim. The theory holds that this interbreeding program was an attempt to disrupt the messianic line and prevent the Messiah from being born. So God destroyed everyone with the flood, close quote. Okay, now that's interesting. One of our podcast favorites, Dr. William Lane Craig, has spoken on this topic extensively. Let's start first from his November 14th, 2018 Defenders Podcast, Series 3, Doctrine of Creation, Part 22, The Origin of Satan. As he says, now turn to 2 Peter 2:4. Here we have something a little bit more specific. The author says, for if God did not spare the angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them to pits of nether gloom to be kept until judgment. What is clearly indicated here is that there are angels who have sinned. This could well be a reference to the sons of God mating with human women in Genesis 6:1-4. But minimally, I think it shows that there are angels who have sinned. It says that these sons of God have been incarcerated in the underworld in some sort of nether darkness. Here we have some indication of the idea of an angelic fall that could be relevant to the origin of demons, close quote. In March 17th, 2013, Dr. William Lane Craig continues in his Defenders Podcast, Series 2, Doctrine of Creation, Part 24, as he adds, and I quote, right from the beginning in the garden, Satan wanted dominion over the earth. That is what he was after. If he could kill Adam and Eve, then he could have dominion. That has always been his major purpose. So if you get to the 6th chapter, this is of Genesis, when you see the sons of God going in and making women their wives and giants resulting, angels have permeated the whole with the purpose of trying to take over the earth. I may be wrong on that, but I really believe it all started in the garden with Satan trying to destroy Adam and Eve to take dominion. Close quote. All right, back to me. It's crucial to avoid imposing supernatural explanations onto Scripture where none are explicitly stated. While the aforementioned scholars do offer some intriguing perspectives from my research, in my viewpoint, the term sons of God doesn't refer to angels, but rather to a specific group of earthly males. Now let's explore what scholars have uncovered regarding the identity of the sons of God as human males. We begin with the Wiersbe Bible commentary where it says, the term sons of God does refer to angels in Job 1:6, 2:1, and 38:7, but these are unfallen angels faithfully serving God. Even if fallen angels could make themselves appear in human bodies, why would they want to marry women and settle down on earth? Certainly their wives and neighbors would detect something different about them, and this would create problems. Furthermore, the emphasis in Genesis 6 is on the sin of man and not the rebellion of angels. The word man is used 9 times in verses 1-7, and God states clearly that the judgment was coming because of what humans had done, close quote. Okay, so the Wiersbe Bible commentary states very forcibly the sons of God were men, not angels. Let's continue with Ron Bigalki from a November 23rd, 2013 article, Who Were the Sons of God in Genesis 6, as he writes, a major factor against both of the previous views is the context. Genesis 4 lists the ungodly line of Cain, and chapter 5 traces the godly line of Seth. In chapter 6, there is a marriage of the ungodly and godly lines, which would be the specific sin. Therefore, the sons of God would be the godly line of Seth, and the daughters of men would be the line of Cain. This context is the furthermost argument for the interpretation, since the concept of a godly line is clearly established. Furthermore, the Hebrew, where it says, and it came to pass when men began to multiply, would indicate continuity in thought between Genesis 5 and chapter 6. The sin is that God's people committed was intermarrying with the ungodly races, which is a common theme throughout the history of the Old Testament, close quote. And that's echoed by R.C. Sproul in his May 27, 2020 article, who are the sons of God in Genesis 6, where he writes, "So the concept of divine sonship in the scriptures is not always linked to a biological or ontological relationship, a relationship of being. Rather, it is chiefly used to set forth a relationship of obedience. This means that Genesis 6 could simply be speaking about the intermarriage of those who manifested a pattern of obedience to God in their lives and those who were pagans in their orientation. In other words, this text likely describes marriages between believers and unbelievers. Therefore, many Hebrew scholars believe that Genesis 6 is describing not the intermarriage of angels and human women, but the intermarriage of the descendants of Cain and Seth. The two lines, one godly, one wicked, come together, and suddenly everyone is caught up in the pursuit of evil, such that every intention of the thoughts of man's heart was on evil continually, as we find in Genesis 6:5. We do not need to surmise an invasion of the earth by angels in order to make sense of this chapter. Resolving the interpretive difficulties of Genesis 6 reminds us to be very careful about drawing inferences from Scripture that are not necessarily warranted. The descriptive terms sons of God and daughters of man do not give us license to make the assumption of interaction between heavenly beings and earthly beings. We have to be very careful when we look at a difficult text like this to see how the language is used in the broader context of Scripture. It is a very important principle that Scripture is to be interpreted by Scripture. All right, back to me. Let's zoom out for a moment and recognize that Genesis 6:2 shouldn't be the sole cornerstone of our theological framework. While some compellingly argue for the sons of God being fallen angels, I lean towards the interpretation of them being human men, a perspective that feels most plausible to me. I'm inclined to reserve supernatural explanations for instances where they're explicitly warranted. Think of the grandeur of the universe's creation or the profound miracle of Jesus Christ's resurrection. In my perspective, the sons of God find their roots in the lineage of Seth. What's intriguing is that the Nephilim, their descendants as mentioned later in Genesis, aren't painted as inherently malevolent. They're rather celebrated figures. However, the mingling of Seth and Cain's lineages eventually sowed seeds of corruption, prompting divine intervention. Now, stay tuned as we unpack this narrative in vivid detail over the course of the next 6 episodes. Now, looking ahead to our next podcast, we'll explore another intriguing question from Genesis 6:6. Why was God dissatisfied with his creation? You may reach us at our website, BibleDifficultiesAndAnswers.podbean.com, or you may reach out to me directly at our email address, BibleDifficultiesAndAnswers@gmail.com, with any questions, comments, concerns, fits of righteous indignation, or just to say hi. Also, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Tell a friend or two as well. And also write a review and give it a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, or any of your podcast venues of choice. It really does help get the word out about the most amazing book ever written. Again, I'm Lance Smith. Until next time, I wish you good luck, good health, and God bless. So long, everybody.